dramatic story of the season.
Unbelievable!
Where are you? Let's be having you!
Who do you support?
Patrick's Athletic and of course Celtic.
Hello and welcome. This is the first episode of the First Touch podcast. We are three hosts. I'm Stokesy.
I'm Tug. I'm Brandon.
And today we've a very special first guest on, Mr. Alan Caffrey.
So we'll start off with the first question. What was your upbringing like in Ireland?
I am from the city centre, so from Harvard Street Flats. Brought up there, played football there, street football I suppose is how I was brought up.
Yeah.
Playing football there, Harvard Street Flats, Mountjoy Square, Sheriff Hall. So just football. I can only remember football, to be honest with you, but it was good, very good.
And what was your first introduction into football? What was your first moment that got you in there? You thought maybe have a professional in this?
I suppose like every young player, you grow up dreaming that you'll get a job in football. Getting the job in coaching and full time for the last 20 years, I suppose, kind of just fell into that. To be honest with you, that wasn't a plan, or didn't even really know much about it, but had a bit of help. But that's how I got into it. Yeah, just keep going, have a love for the game, and kind of just you meet people along the way that will help you. And I've been blessed to be only ever worked in football.
What major career decisions that has led you here?
It's been loads of different decisions and risks that you have to take if you're gonna have a career in football. There's loads of hard decisions you have to make. When you chose to go the coaching route and go off to England and learn at West Brom, that's a big decision. When I chose to leave West Brom, so I was at a Premier League club. When I chose to leave and come home, that's a big decision. So I think if you're going to push yourself to the top and keep looking for good jobs in football, you got to take risks. So But I also had this big drive in me to want to be the best and want to win.
Why did you leave West Brom?
There was a few different reasons. One was we used to have a lot of Irish players coming over, and just way out of depth. Just not their fault because they just weren't taught what we were taught. So I had this kind of mission in my head that I would go back and teach Irish players how academy football in England works. Didn't know where I was going to do it or how I was going to do it, but I just kind of had that in the head. And then one of the other main reasons was, I wanted to go back and see me nanny. So,
fair enough.
Who had raised me. So that's they're the two main reasons. But from a football point of view, it definitely was, a lot of Irish players coming over and they didn't know, about proper structured training, gyms, just stuff like that. So that wasn't their fault. So I just felt that I needed to come home and put what I learned at West Brom in place in Ireland. Like I said, when I came home, I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. But once I was given the opportunity, then I was like, yeah, okay, let's try this and see how we go.
How did the West Brom compare to Irish football back then?
Oh, it's funny, like back then, if you go to West Brom now, it's got an unbelievable setup. But when I first went, Eddie Boothroyd took me over, and then I was learning under Dan Ashworth. But facilities were probably the worst in Birmingham. Birmingham Cities were good, Villas were good, Wolves was good, and West Brom was still definitely training all over the place. So they used to train in a school, train in two schools, put up nets, put up goals. So funny enough, when I left Kevin's to go to West Brom, Kevin's probably had a better setup than West Brom. But now, over the 3-4 years and up to now, 50-20, they've got brilliant facilities now, So but the difference is the professionalism, the coaching, the detail, how the teams play, how it relates to the first team. So that's the huge difference. It's a whole new environment, So great learning experience.
Right, Caffo, obviously, we started you off with a few tough questions, so we're going to just go into a little game. We have a drop start bench.
Okay.
So you'll know how that will work. I'm going to give you 3 players. You'll pick one player that you drop out of the team, one player that you'd start, and one player that you'd have on the bench. I'm going to go with 2 of them, right? So first of all, we're going to go with strikers. So we're going to go with Rory Gaffney, Patrick Hooban, and Jonathan Afolabi. Now, we want you to think of these players not even in current form, just at their best of their ability, and what way you think that'll go.
Oh, who would I start? Well, Pat Hooban, I'd start. His goal scoring is, and then what's it?
Rory Gaffney and Afolabi.
Bench and drop.
I'd probably have Gaffney on the bench.
Yeah.
In fairness, like he's won 4 leagues, so got a great work ethic as well about him.
Bowes
Obviously.
listeners won't be happy with that one.
Sorry?
Afolabi on the bench, the Bowes listeners.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, he's had a good season this year. He's been top goal scorer.
Yeah.
Let's see what he can do next season. But the other 2 have track records, don't they? They've done it season after season.
And following up after that, where can you see Pat Hooban going, or where do you think he'd be better off for this season?
I'd imagine he's an ambitious person and would probably hope to go to one of the top 3 teams, whether it be Rovers, Derry or Pats. I'd imagine that's what he would hope for, So it'll be, I suppose, who can afford him, I suppose.
Obviously, Rovers in need of a striker now, with Gaffney kind of getting past it age-wise, and they didn't score as many goals probably as they would have liked the last season. So do you think that'd be a good improvement for Rovers?
Yeah, I think Shamrock Rovers need an out-and-out striker, but I mean the work Rory Gaffney does is incredible. Like, he makes runs down the wings and crosses the ball to probably where he could be or should be. So in fairness, for the goals he doesn't score, he's probably involved in other goals with his runs he makes. You know, so look, it'll be frightening if Rovers have a consistent goal scorer. I mean, the rest of the league may look out.
And then we're going to go down to the other end of the pitch. We're going to go with one for our goalkeepers. Do you know you love? Got to have 2 goalkeepers in here that I know you've been in a club at the same time as. So we're going to go at their best. We're going to go with Brendan Clark, Brian Maher, and then we're going to go with Alan Manus, obviously Northern Irish. So,
tough that. Again, Alan Manus, you win leagues like that and be as consistent and have as many clean sheets as he has, you've got to start him, don't you? And then Clarkey, so it's kind of that order, isn't it? Clarkey and then Brian after that.
Yeah.
Brian will appreciate that. He's got time on his hands to get up there. But yeah, look at Alan's probably been the best goalkeeper, hasn't he, in the league for last 6-7 years. So
definitely.
Who'll be the best player you've coached?
Look, I've been blessed to work with many talented players. To pick a best, like choosing who's your favourite kid, even though my son is. Shouldn't say that. No, look, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to work with very good players, Irish players, some very good players that have come through like West Brom's ranks, like Sido, Berahino, remember he made the breakthrough. Kamar Roof was playing for Rangers, and so Romain Sawyer's a great player. So some players there, and Irish players, there's a good few of them that have broke through. Obviously Jack Bourne and there's obviously Evan, everybody's speaking about now. Dan Mandrew, Darryl O'Shea. So very hard to pick one because they've all got. See, the thing about players is you can never just pick one player because they've all got different attributes. Yeah. Some are very skillful, some are, brave and passionate, some are tactically very good. So very hard to pick one in that. And I'd never hear the end of it if I picked one. So yeah.
And now following on from that question, I'm glad you said these 2 players, with Evan Ferguson and Danny Mandrew. Who would you kind of prefer? Like, if you had to pick, say, one of the players in, say, all ability, with, say, technical, tactical, physical, mental, just every sense? Which
Wow,
player
this
would you
is-
pick?
This is a tough interview, this, isn't it? Thank
Interrogation.
God there's no forfeit for having to answer it properly. Again, look at they've two very different players. You know, you know, Evan's a goal scorer and Dano's a provider. Scores goals himself, like, you know, is an outstanding talent. In like, my ideal would have the two of them in the same team, you know, than playing them passes, Evan making them runs and finishing. That would be, but they're very different players. Like, you know, if I'm looking for a midfielder, then I'm picking Dan all day long. If I'm looking for a goal scorer, I'm picking Evan all day long. So it just depends on what I'm picking. But if you give me the ideal situation, and I hope someday it happens, that Dan's playing in the same Ireland team as them.
It was just a question. Remember you saying you were with West Brom and stuff. What age were you when you went over to West Brom? What made you go over there?
Well, the story's funny. The story's it was a phone call. Adi Boothroyd, who I'd met at Norwich, was a brilliant coach, England under-21 manager, and Watford promoted to the Premier League. Brilliant coach, absolute. First time I seen him coach, I was like, wow, this fella's on another planet. So he was at Norwich when I visited Norwich, and he got the job at West Brom. And one day out of the blue, just got a phone call to say would I come, which was totally surprising because I didn't really, you know, at that stage I was only starting out in coaching, you know. But he seen something in me, in fairness, so I took the gamble and I went over, and like went over like not having a clue what way it was going to be, you know, whether I was good enough or anything like that. In my head, it was like this big professional football club, but it wasn't like that. It was something that was starting new, you know. So there was AD was going to put a new structure into it, new coaching structure, football structure, and then Dan Ashford brought it to the next level. So it was great to be in at the start of building something rather than go in at something that's already built. So I got to learn how to build an academy, how to coach properly, how to coach players at a high level. So yeah, that's how it came about, really, to be honest with you. Just met the right person at the right time. I obviously impressed him when I met him, and we had a good few football conversations. Yeah, and with these sort of people, like these sort of people at the high end, if you can't spoof them, like, you know, there's a lot of spoofers out there in football, a lot of them, especially in Ireland. So you can't spoof these kind of people. Like, you gotta be able to have a proper conversation with them at their level, and you gain their respect then, you know. So yeah.
As you were saying there, you're saying there's a few spoofers in Ireland and stuff like that. Why do you think Irish football is so bad?
Look, I don't think it's as bad as what we make it out. We're just typical Irish and we want to see the bad in it. But look, two big things for me. Simple as, if you're running an academy or a football club or an association, structure and procedure. Yeah, what's the structure? So what is the actual structure and the detail of that structure? And then what's the procedures to get coaches? What's the procedure to get players? What's the procedure? So, and there's a lot of talk in Irish football about we need money. And of course we need money, but like, what in Ireland doesn't need money? You know, hospitals need money, you know, schools need money, football needs money. But unless you have the right structure in place of this is how it's going to work, and we're all on that one road, and then the procedures of how we go about it, and that's the biggest problem. I don't see an exact structure of how it's going to be done, and at times I just feel there's no procedure in how things are done, picked, chosen, whatever. So that would be, if somebody said to me, you know, I've listened to so many people over, you know, money, but sure, that doesn't, you know, if you don't know where you're going to structurally spend the money, you know, like somebody said to me there only last week, like, you know, if I had 20 million, you know, would I, you know, put it into a stadium? If I was, no, I wouldn't waste 20 million in building stadiums that have fallen down. I waste 20 million building a training ground that will be used every day. by people, and for more than just training. So yeah, structure and procedure would be the two things I think will bring Irish football back.
As you were saying there, now, Ireland, the senior team's not doing great at the moment. And obviously, Stephen Kenny started getting sacked. Who do you think is the next candidate for the next job? Or a good candidate, even?
Yeah, the way I look at it, again, it depends on what we're looking for, I mean, at the end of the day, at senior international football, you've got to qualify. Like, that's the goal. You've got to qualify for the Euros or the World Cup. So who can we pick? So again, for me, you look at the squad of players we have, and then you say, right, got a young squad. Maybe we can talk one or two out of retirement, because I think one or two retired too early. Okay, that's our squad I have. Now, what sort of coach and manager do we need? Do we need a motivational coach and manager? Do we need a tactical coach and manager? What do we need that will help this group of players be there or thereabouts when it comes to qualification? And then, rather than what we do over here, you throw out 6, 7 names and say, oh, yeah, he looks good, or he did this, or he did that. It's got to what fits into the structure of the international team, in which direction we want to go. But if you're looking within Ireland, obviously Stephen Bradley's won 4 leagues in a row. So for me, he's the only candidate within the league that can't be questioned 4 leagues in a row. Outside, I'd love him to see Brendan Rodgers get it. I would love, but he ain't going to leave Celtic now after just going back and leaving. So, because I think Brendan Rodgers could have done a brilliant job in it. And yeah, see who's out there. Obviously, Lee Carsley's been spoken about. He's going to leave the England 21s where, you're always playing in tournaments.
What do you think of people talking about Roy Keane as the manager?
Again, I don't from a football point of view, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I get it from a publicity point of view and a discipline point of view, I suppose, but I don't get it from a football point of view, would you give it to Roy Keane? Yeah, the Irish public would be behind that. We might even get a sponsorship, behind that. But again, it just all depends on what way the people in the FAI see it, so.
Right, obviously staying on the topic then of Irish football, if you say were going back into a job, if you could pick another League of Ireland club to work with, who and why?
Well, look at the number one club in the country at the moment is Shelbourne Rovers. So people in football want to work in the number one club. I want to work with the best clubs, don't they? So Shelbourne Rovers would obviously be a big interest. In Dublin. Obviously Derry are an interesting club, aren't they? I don't know too much about them, but look, they've got great support, good structure. I always liked Cork, but unfortunately, obviously, they've been relegated this year. I always thought it was so. But look, I think, I'd be lying if I didn't say, you want to be the best, you want to work with the best. And at the moment, the best in the country is Shelbourne Rovers.
And then obviously, you spend time at Shells, Kevin's been over in England with West Brom and the likes of that. Have you got any particular player in mind that, say, as a kid or as a younger player, you might have thought had loads of ability that has ended up going really far in the game or has got to a much better level than you would have expected?
Yeah, look at, there's not people have this perception that, what is ability, is ability like talent on the ball, I've seen very talented players not get to where I thought they might get to. And I've seen players that didn't have what you would call talent, but were mentally strong, were physically strong, great work ethic. So I've seen all different ranges. I've seen people that I thought have done well and they've done well. I love Darragh O'Shea's story. Went to West Brom on a scholarship, worked extremely hard. Manager took a liking to him, got into the first team, and played well, stayed in the first team at West Brom, became captain of West Brom, you know, played senior international football. So like story like that, I love that story. I think it's brilliant, like, you know. So I love James McLean's story. I love that, you know, really worked hard, just had a work ethic about him, and look at the career he's had. So I love stories like that. But players have different routes, you know, and some players will work really, really hard and it just won't happen for them because they just haven't got what that club are looking for. And then some players have all the talent in the world and it doesn't work out for them because that's, you know, they just believe that they can get by on their talent. But unfortunately in this game, you can't just do that, you know.
Yeah. And then kind of going to the other side of the game, you know, through a coach's point of view and then through a personal point of view, what's your opinion on modern trends? Say the likes of players, you know, coming into clubs, say cutting their socks and wearing grip socks and
with the sliders, stuff like that.
Coming in with sliders, tape around the wrist.
Look, without sounding like an old man, like I don't, you know, trends are trends. Like, you know, I just cutting the bottom of your socks off. I really don't get it. And I mean, I don't know why the clubs allow it, to be honest with you. Well, I just wouldn't allow that. Like, you know, somebody bringing the scissors and cutting the pair of socks, like, you know, with like my thing is like if it was a real performance enhancing way of playing, then do you not think like Adidas and Nike would do that with their socks rather than give it to somebody to cut the bottoms of their socks? So I don't get that. Sliders always been a pet hate of mine. You know, people strolling in with sliders for what reason other than maybe it looks cool, like, you know.
But some players say, like, you know, after training you do a hard session and it's comfy, you know. It's comfy when you put your feet in the sliders after a bill's been on you. What do you think of that?
But it's not comfy like if you put them in a pair of Nike.
Well, players just say it's
like,
comfy.
And I mean, as a player, like, you're going home, Brandon. You're not going to run a marathon. Yeah. No. So look, I get it. You know, these young players obviously see players on the TV. You know, I know like some players. I seen a player only last week wear Crocs to a game.
You go down well now.
I didn't have words, to be honest with you. So look at these. Yeah, I don't. You know, I only care what you do on the football pitch. I don't overly care like what you look like. But having said that, the cutting the bottom of socks, two things we pay: cutting the bottom of the socks, and this new one about cutting the backs of your socks so your calves can breathe. Seriously, I mean, if God wanted your calves to breathe, like, you know, you'd have put some holes in it somewhere. So yeah, that's another pet hate of mine. Yeah.
You've mentioned the structural importance in the in Irish football, and also you mentioned that when you went out to West Brom, that's something you learned. Did you end up taking that with you when you went back to Ireland to Shells?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, you get the end story. Yeah, this is what you want to look like in the end, and you work back to under eights. So how do you get to where you want it again? So that's where structure comes into it. So how do you want your under eights to play? You know, how you want your 5-a-side and your 7-a-side and your 9-a-side to play. That all has to lead into it. So what you can't have in a football club, and I look, it's in the majority of football clubs, but what I was brought up in, you can't have like 15 coaches playing 15 different ways. I mean, you know, and one coach watches Match of the Day and he goes out the next morning, he wants his kids to play like Match of the Day. And then, you know, one other coach listens to Gary Neville on a Monday night and like Tuesday's training is all about, like, you can't have that in a structure and player development. There's got to be steps that take you to that. And you've got to understand that, we would have spoken this at Kevin's a lot, like, we've only to get them to a level, yeah? So the level isn't League of Ireland, the level is to try and get them to England, yeah? And if they fall just short of England, they play League of Ireland, yeah? And when they get to England, it's up to the clubs in England, or now it's not England, it's Italy, or whatever the case may be, Belgium, some players have gone to. That's their job to get them to that level. Our job isn't to get them to be Premier League footballers. Our job is just to get them in the door, or give them the tools that will get them in the door.
Yeah.
Their whole attitude and their whole surroundings will what get them to be a senior international. A few players that have come through the system that I've coached in have gone on to be senior internationals. But I didn't make them senior internationals. Like, they had to be taken other levels by other people to be senior internationals.
Yeah.
But what we did was we gave them the foundation in a structure of how to play football, how to train, how to act, how to behave. And then they brought that to whatever club they went, and then they took it on. And good luck to them. So for me, structure of a football club, of an academy, of an association is everything. I mean, if you look at rugby, look at the rugby structure, schools, Leinster, Munster, international, all linked. Everything is linked into it. They're all training a certain way to get onto that pitch for Leinster or Munster or Connacht. And then they're all playing and training a certain way to be internationals. That's what structure is, in my opinion.
Yeah. And obviously you're at Kevin's before. How would you compare Kevin's from when you were there to post when you were there?
I don't compare it, is the answer to that. It's none of my business. I'm not there, Is it run differently? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is run differently. No more than I ran it differently than the person that was in charge before me. They've got to run with it. They've got to do what they think is right. Whether it's right or not is another thing. But look, that's up to them. Like, that's none of my business. I still talk to, a handful of people in the club, and obviously I still keep an eye on what goes on. But what they do and how they do it, there's none of my business. It might frustrate me a little bit, but it's none of my business, to be honest with you.
Yeah. As you're saying there, schoolboy football is really important. Who do you think is the best schoolboy player in Ireland at the moment, or even Dublin?
Well, you go back to schoolboy football, and this is, again, structure, voice structure is impossible. So the first thing we lost in this city, because I don't know about other cities, the first thing we lost in this city is street football. So we lost it. It's gone. So, like, when we were growing up, there was 5-a-sides and 7-a-sides, like in Harvard Street, in Mountjoy, in the Diamond, in Cabret, in Finglas. People played football all the time, Now, when you lose that, you lose, what would I say, a street element of football, clever footballers. Yeah. So that goes. So then the other part of it starts to crumble, because the schoolboy clubs, who were brilliant for the last 50 years, because they were taking street footballers and they were giving them a bit of structure, but they weren't killing street footballers. They were helping them and enhancing them, keeping them out of trouble at times. And so there you go, straight away the foundation is, as you can see, is cracked in that situation. So that's where I feel the problem is. It's how do we bring back street football in that? I think it's one of the most important things, here in town, obviously we've got a lot of pitches close to us, and some pitches are free. And
Do you think they're, sorry about cutting across, but do you think the pitches around are always open to the public?
Well, that's the problem. Like, the fact that some pitches you have to pay for, I just think it's a disgrace on the government and whoever else is charging for them. I get football clubs that have spent millions of their private pitches. I get that. But any pitch that's in a public park you should not have to pay. It should be open for kids to play there, adults to play there till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, wherever the case may be. And I find it astonishing that you have to pay to play football on a decent bit of ground in a public park. Like in Cabret, I went from town and moved up in Cabret. Like in Cabret, we would have had about 5-6 pitches. The Nard, the Lair, the Church, all them pitches are gone. None of them pitches exist. There's no public tarmac, AstroTurf pitch to play in Caffo.
Why do you think they're all gone?
Because, in fairness, I would imagine, I don't know, but I'd imagine that the FEI or whoever took their eye off the ball, and the rugby and Gaelic and hurling got stronger. Like, you know, you look at GAA clubs now, like, you know what I mean? The numbers they have, look at the setups they have. So they took their eye off the ball. You know, you look at Fairview there.
Yeah.
You know, look at the GAA setup there. You know what I mean? And it's probably just, I don't know, is there one GAA team just uses that club?
2 or 3, I'd say.
2 or 3.
And then the new Clontarf, new actually got put down there as well.
In there, you know what I mean? So, and how many soccer teams have to share pitch?
Too many.
You know, so that just shows you, doesn't it? So I think there was that. I think there was definitely the eye was taken off the ball. But I'd be a huge believer in that, you know, whoever's in the next government, they need to bring back public soccer pitches for kids to go and play.
Yeah.
Could also be like a problem with kids nowadays. Like, if it's raining, they won't go out play football. If they'll go in their gaff before 7. It's probably also the way kids are being raised now compared to back then. Less of the street was.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, obviously, you know, computers and all that sort of stuff, you know. But like, you'll never know until something else is there to entice them. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing there. So what do? Stand on the corner of the street and, you know, soon get bored of that, or play your PlayStation. So until there's other, and I don't, you know, there should be basketball courts. There should be, you know, like I said, in the city centre, it's pretty all right, you know, all around here that I see. But in other areas that I see, there's just no facilities for lads to just go and play. And I know they talk about vandalism and all that, but like, if you get the right bunch, they'll look after it, like, because they know that's what they'll get out of it. Like, that's all lads want to do. Like, if there's a pitch built beside your house that public could use, you're not telling me that 10, 12, 20 lads won't come out and have a game of football. Yeah. And then it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or whatever the case may be. Everybody just wants to play until you're dragged in off the street. Yeah,
like I remember years ago when growing up in Cherry Orchard, we had one Astro, but you used to have to wait about an hour and a half for them to get off that, for them used to hop on. It was literally queues to go in and play football. Yeah. But nowadays you can't even get an Astro to play on. Like, it shows the. But see, isn't that great? Like, you would wait around for an hour and a half to play. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? That's the difference. Because you wanted to get on the pitch, and not only that, you were watching all the lads play, and you want to get to that level. You know, growing up in the city centre, that's the big thing. Like, you see brilliant footballers. I've seen some unbelievable footballers around this place. And you want to get on next, and you want to play with them when you're older and stuff like that. That's what it's all about. That's lost. Doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately.
Do you think it's fair the way the likes of Cherry Orchard, Evergreen, Belvo, Kevin's, Joey's weren't allowed to enter a League of Ireland underage team? Do you think that's fair? Yeah, well, look, I was at Kevin's when this all kicked off, and I was probably one of the main people that fought against the system with Kevin's. How it was all put about, how it was all done. Again, no real thinking into it, no structure into it. How do you get into that system? All right, well, you just have to be a League of Ireland club. All right. Even though most of them League of Ireland clubs didn't even have schoolboys teams at the time. So like, there's a stupid structure to put into place, because already you're going to have all them clubs that you were speaking about and many more saying, well, we've got better players, we've got better facilities, and we're not allowed into it. Okay, so there's your first problem. And didn't even have conversations really. You know, it was just brought in and this is the way it was. Second thing was, these League of Ireland clubs obviously were convinced that these schoolboy clubs were making millions, which they weren't making millions. And if anything, it was costing these schoolboy clubs that have good facilities money. So again, League of Ireland clubs being League of Ireland clubs, you know, just greed. They thought they were getting something that they were, and now they're all complaining that they need money because they can't afford it. So there's your problem straight away in that. But now where we are today, do I think that these clubs deserve to be in it? No, because it's too far down the line.
you know. Now, you can argue and say, well, what about Kilkenny and, you know, all these other clubs that aren't League of Ireland clubs and they're in it, you know, associations. And again, I kind of got a problem with that because, like, what's the criteria?
Yeah,
What's
like,
the structure?
Like
know?
them teams are getting hopped off every week. There's no benefit to the team that's beating them. There's probably no benefit to them that's playing.
Yeah. So, you know, so if you take, so what I said to you tomorrow when I was in charge of football, and I said, right, these schoolboy clubs can get in, but everybody can't get in. Only three can get in. Okay, only three Dublin clubs can get into the League of Ireland setup. How would you decide that?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
So would Belvedere deserve to be in it?
I don't know.
Yeah, but the only way to know. So the only way to know is to have a structure.
Mm.
Yeah, this is the criteria to get in. You've got to have this, in place. So everybody knows. So everybody has to have that. Yeah. But the problem is in Dublin, especially now, because it's not only, you know, the big name clubs that have facilities now. Like, you know, a lot of clubs now have top facilities.
Yeah, but sometimes it's about the players they have as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, it needs time like everything else, you know. So again, this comes, so you were talking about players. So do you get in based on your players? For sure. You don't know whether you're going to have them next season or the season after that, you know. So it's a very complicated situation that now. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, you know. But to bring it back, at the very start, they should have been part of a conversation. And we wouldn't be in the problems that we're having now.
Yeah, and do you think that League of Ireland should start at under 14s? Like, I'm in Calcs now at the moment, under 11s, and like in 2 or 3 years, the League of Ireland clubs are going to start taking our players, which I think is way too young.
Yeah, look, I can see the problem. Again, I keep bringing this word up, but structure, like, you can't, like, for me, you can't start a development program, a League of Ireland development program at 14.
Yeah, like you're training 3 times a week for the last 4 years, and then you just get taken off.
Yeah. It's wrong. Yeah. It's wrong. You know, so should it, like, there's 2 arguments, right? And my argument as a development person has always been it should start younger and it should build up. So when this first started, they should have started at under 10s and built it up that way. Yeah. So there's that. Or there's another argument that the clubs can't afford all these teams. So it should be just under 20s and under 18s. Yeah. Because they just can't afford it. And let the DDSL clubs have the responsibility of producing the players like they did. You know, so that's where the fascinating, you know, argument is in this, you know. But my belief is that if you're going to do it and you're going to do it right, every League of Ireland club should have a small-sided game section. Every league. So they shouldn't be dependent on
the link clubs.
Yeah, you know, all these affiliated clubs. They shouldn't be dependent on going in and taking their players. You know, and they'll say they're not taking their players because they've got links and all. But at the end of the day, they're taking over the very good work that ordinary volunteers put in for 4 or 5 years, and just to see these players, like, you know, ripped away. And the problem is like, you've got a squad of 16 players, right? And let's just say 10 of them go League of Ireland. Yeah. You're left with 6 lads that are heartbroken and don't know what to do, and, you know, join another club, maybe other players will come in. So there's a bigger picture, you know, that, again, just not enough thought was put into it. But if you want to stop it all, you turn around and you say, going forward from here on in, League of Ireland clubs have to have small-sided games. Yeah. Produce their own players rather than take players at that.
Sure happened with Evan Ferguson. Of course, he was developing that. He didn't even sign for Bows. And it's widespread that Bows would get, like, the recognition for him going over there. But in fact, he was there for Kevin's for a while.
Yeah. Okay, the way I look at that is, like, you know, I don't know what recognition anybody should get. Like, at the end of the day, he's gone to Brighton. Brighton have made him a Premier League player, now an international player. And the people that know that Evan Ferguson played for Kevin's for all the schoolboy, you know, for want of a better word, career. So that's the way I look at that. You know, who claims the bragging rights and all on social media and all that. You know, I'm sure Evan doesn't care. So it's look, you can't. You're never going to stop that, are you? You know, but people know. The people that know what work was put into. You know, all of them players, not just Evan. Evan didn't get any special treatment, you know, or anything like that. He got the same training, the same standards, that were wanted off him, were wanted off every player. So people know.
And then, say going back to schoolboy level, do you think there's enough support in Ireland for players? So say there's 20 players on the team, 16 get taken into League of Ireland and 4 get dropped, released, whatever way you want to call it. Do you think that the clubs do enough for the players, say mental health wise, or to help them get back into the game, or help them get with a different team trial wise?
I suppose the answer to that is no. But like, what do you expect these clubs to be able to do? Like, at the end of the day, they're voluntary football clubs. And like, I don't agree with this argument about, you know, this a football, you know, it's like the argument that was always on, these lads go to England and they don't make it and they come back devastated and it's only in football. Well, like, you know, there's an acting school just down the road. And I'm sure there's about 30 people in there all dream of going to Hollywood. And if they're lucky, maybe one will go to Hollywood. Nobody speaks about the 29 people that don't make it just because it's acting.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that goes on, you know, there's people dream of playing for Leinster, the people dream of playing for Dublin, and it doesn't, you know, I just don't think that you can cater for everything. Like, it's not the club's responsibility. Like, you know, it's terrible if mental health issues are caused because of football. And I understand that it does happen. I've lived it, you know, I've football has driven me around the bend, like, you know, but it's not the club's response, like, to ask clubs that are full of volunteers, that, you know, people that go to work, do their jobs, look after their families and look after somebody else's kids 2, 3, 4 times a week. It's not easy, like, you know, so I think they're trying their best, you know, and in a perfect scenario, you have all different avenues that people can go in and help, but, you know, just, we're never going to get to that level, like, so you just hope you're doing your best at the time.
And then obviously we went very deep there, so gonna hit you with a light-hearted question to, you know, bring the mood up. If you had to go with a dream 5-a-side, so you can say any Irish player, any player that's played in the League of Ireland at the best in their career, say you go with a goalkeeper, a defender, 2 midfielders and an attacker, what would you go with?
So 5 of Irish players.
Of Irish players.
In goal, I probably have Shay Given one.
Yeah.
So I'd say 2 defenders.
1 defender.
One of them, Paul McGrath.
Yeah.
Many midfielders.
2.
Liam Brady. And Roy Keane. Roy Keane win the ball, give it to Liam Brady and let him do his stuff.
Yeah.
Centre forward.
Yeah.
Robbie Keane.
And in that, you notice how there's no like kind of current playing players. There's no, you know, players.
Oh no, absolutely. Look, I hear this at League of Ireland every week. You know, the league's better. You know, football's better. You know, we don't have the players. Now the game's changed. You know, like tactically, it's more tactically. But like, you know, we're brought up looking at like top players. Like, you know, like I got a little lad, like, I just dread the day Messi retires, like, and what does he get to watch?
Yeah.
You know, so them players, yeah. But them players that I named in my 5, like, are top players, like, playing in top clubs in the league. Fortunately, we just don't have that at the moment. But I know what you're saying. And hopefully all these young lads here will write their own bit of history in Irish football and qualify for something and inspire a generation to want to be footballers, because that's what it does. You know, we all remember What would you would have remembered
Shane
there?
Long scored against Germany. They sent us through to qualify for it.
That goal, yeah.
Yeah.
And Robbie's goal
Yeah,
against Italy.
and against France and stuff.
You know, I
like that.
remember watching that in an empty room on my own, like screaming and shouting when he scored.
Yeah.
You know, so like they're memories that you just don't forget and that you grow up. But at the moment now, we've got a young generation that have no memories of good times.
Yeah.
You know, where if you obviously are a young rugby player and you watch the World Cup, it was inspiring. Right, in the end, we were beaten by the All Blacks. If you're a young Gaelic player and you're watching the Dubs win the All Ireland, you know. Again, the job Katie Taylor's doing for girls in boxing and stuff like that. So young Irish players need that. We need that big occasion that will inspire a generation to be footballers, you know, want to be that.
I think we got a bit of that with the female side of things qualifying for the World Cup. The women's team.
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, young girls that are aspiring to be footballers, seeing the World Cup, you know, pretty it was so far away and it was at different times. But yeah, I'm sure that young girls now going more and more to watch international football aspire to that.
Yeah.
And that's great, like, you know. That's like, I think the best thing you can do when you're in a position of being a professional and you're lucky enough to have the job that you dream for is inspire people to come next after you. You know, I think that's the greatest thing you can do, you know, to give them. You know, what the women's Irish team are very good at is they involve the fans and everything. You know, football sometimes can be the players and the fans are a bit of a distance, you know. That's why League of Ireland's good. They've kind of got that, haven't they? They kind of embraced that now. So that's good. That's great to see because that wasn't always like that, was it? Yeah. So, yeah, I think you have to, if you're blessed enough to inspire people to think bigger than they are, then you're doing a good job.
And, you know, with the likes of what you just said, with how clubs are and just in general, how do you think the FAI could turn things around to get, say, fans back on their side, to get better backing, just in general?
Well, it's trust, isn't it? Like, you know, the problem is, right, so the way I see it is that, you know, you've got good people in the FAI, right? They're not all bad or, you know, not bad. That's the wrong word, you know, probably incompetent. I think it's like everything else. How do you get fans on your side? You win football matches. Simple. That's quite simple. If you start to win football matches, you pick the right manager in that. But for me, it's that structure. It's that this is the plan. This is where we're going. But this is the plan. Yeah, and this is the procedure we're going to go through to carry out that plan.
Yeah.
But not put in, you know, airy-fairy stuff that you just no chance, and that everybody looks at it and goes, yeah, right, no chance. You know what I mean? So that would be my you know, governance, how the game is governed. You know, we've seen obviously problems over the years of that. So if you want to earn people's trust, then that's what you've got to do. You know. So.
And we'll end on the last one. What would have been the major struggles you found in your life, and how would you overcome them?
No, I'll give you in and out of football. In football, I only know football, so I've only been in football, and it's the greatest sport in the world, and at times it's the most horrible sport in the world. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with it. You know, there's times I hate it. You know, I go home, I just hate it. And then I get up the next morning and I love it, you know. So that's what football does, yeah. And I've been blessed enough to be quite successful in my career. And the thing about success is it only lasts for like an hour, and yet a defeat lasts for like a lifetime, you know. So that's where sport is so great and yet so cruel. Like, you know, it's like you want to get there, and when you get there, it's like, oh, do you know what? That isn't what I thought it would be. Like I thought I'd feel different. I thought I'd be a king or something like that. You know, so that's why you see players, and you see, you know, you hear players and coaches speak about they were so desperate to get to somewhere, and when they got there, it was like, it's not the way I kind of visioned it or the feeling and that. So, so that would be a big thing, that if you're going to have a career, no matter what, whether it's coaching or playing, it's a tough game. Like, you know, it's you take like Messi, you know, the greatest player to ever play the game, but yeah, he had to win a World Cup to prove that. Imagine that. Like, he was like, you know, he was inches away where the goalkeeper Martinez made that save that time in injury time. Like, that goes in, and he's considered a failure.
It's fine margins.
You know, so imagine that. Like, you know, imagine, and he's the greatest player in the world. So imagine how us mere mortals feel when we're trying to reach the top of the peak.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, I suppose, away from football that has changed me and changed the way I look at things, and like, in this life that we live, we all go through hard times, and that's just it. Like, you know, and some of it is brought on ourselves, and some of it, as we seen yesterday, is brought on by other people, you know. But I suppose the thing that changed my life was having to make the decision to turn off my dad's machine, life support machine, 2 years ago. You know, 1 minute I'm sitting beside him, 12 hours later, he's, you know, had a fall, had a tragic accident, and you have to make that decision. And that decision weighs heavily on you. And it goes back to the start of what I said. Like, you've got to, when you make decisions on careers or life, it's got to be a decision that you can live with.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't live with it for 2 years. You know, after the dust settled, I blamed myself. I knocked her off too early. All that sort of stuff. I thought people were thinking that you knocked her off too early and stuff like that, and they weren't. But that was just mentally where I was.
Yeah.
So that changed me, and that was tough. And I was rock bottom in the darkest of darkest places, praying just to get through the next day. And you do, and it, you know, there's a light there somewhere, and you just have to get up the next day. And if you have to sleep for 20 hours, then you go to sleep for 20 hours, and you go to sleep for 19 hours the next day. And that's the best way to do it, because the one thing I do know, that, you know, there is no, and we all live happily ever after kind of thing. It's like, we've got one life. We don't know what tomorrow brings. You know, we don't know whether we're going to live till, my nanny and granddad lived till they were 91, 92, 93.
Yeah.
My dad lived till he was 60. So, you know, you never know. Yeah. So just as much as you can, go with it, you know, but just know that pain doesn't last, and you can push on. So yeah. You just got to keep going. And that's what, if you're going to have a career in sport, that's what you got to do. Because there's days where you think, I am loving this. And there's days you close the door and go, oh my God, I could strangle somebody, you know. So that's why we love it. That's why we go back to it.
And come here, I think that's great for, you know, people listening in as well, to show that, you know, not everyone in the sports industry and, you know, are just coaches or are just footballers. Like, you have a personal life and stuff goes on in the background, and no, I'm sure that's good for people to hear listening.
Yeah, and that is, like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, you know, and nobody's perfect. You know, we all do things and we all make mistakes and all that. But you try to portray a perfect life, and it's not perfect. Yeah. And what I suppose what I've learned, and to finish off on this, because I think it's important, is that talking to people helps.
Yeah.
You know, a friend of mine who's a sports psychologist, Tom Bates, you know, I spoke to him, and then another friend of mine gave me a counsellor at the lowest of lowest. I actually met him, ironically enough, I met him at Clontarf one day at Belvedere, and we got talking, and he just sent me a message the next day thinking, like, I think you should speak to this person. And I didn't for 4 weeks. I was like, I'm not speaking. What am I going to say? Like, I've got nothing to say. And a year and a half later, I'm still talking to that person every week. So I think that's a big thing that everybody should learn, that it is good to talk. And it doesn't matter who you talk to once you can talk to them. You know, it doesn't have to be a mate, it doesn't have to be, you know, because everybody has good intentions. Like, everybody, and it's easy to say, oh, you should talk, but sometimes it's just easier to talk to a stranger. So yeah, there is light, keep going, you know, and your worst defeat in football, get up, get to the next training session, next match, just keep going, and please God, it'll all even itself out.
Well, Caffo, we're very thankful for you coming on for the first episode.
Thanks very much, Caffo.
No problem, I'm delighted. Yeah, and best of luck with it. I think you will be very successful. Any
Hope
questions?
so.
Thank you.
Hope
Thank you
so.
very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks.